Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Pax Tau has called for an extension of AGOA on day one of the forum. The 21st African Growth and Opportunity Act Forum is being held in Washington, D.C. The theme for this year's forum is Beyond 2025, Reimagining AGOA for an Inclusive, Sustainable and Prosperous Tomorrow. For more on this, we speak to President of the U.S. Africa Business Center at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and that's Kendra Gaither. Kendra, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. Let's start with the theme, or the choice, maybe I should say, of the theme for this year.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the invitation to be here with you, Vuyo. I'm here in Washington, D.C., where I was pleased to participate in the first day of the Private Sector Forum. Now, the Private Sector Forum was convened under a slightly different heading, but all of them are really focused on how do we use today's conversation to call for reauthorization of the AGOA? How do we use it to increase utilization so it can be the tool that it was envisioned to be? And how do we ensure that our African partners who are able to utilize AGOA really can see the benefits, not just today, but into the future? And that involves a long-term extension and reauthorization of the Act.
What are the tenets, or what underpins that sort of whatever long-term vision people may have of AGOA going forward?
So it's very interesting. In the Private Sector Forum yesterday, which included business leaders, senior U.S. officials, Minister Pax Tau, who addressed the body, the emphasis is really on how can we utilize AGOA to be a building block to something bigger. The United States government has described it as the cornerstone of economic and commercial policy engagement with the continent. But as it was designed, it's focused only on sub-Saharan Africa. And the continent has defined itself as an inclusive community of 54 nations. And so part of what's permeating the AGOA conversation is how do we look at how this was initially designed in 2000, which didn't fully capture all of the markets and the opportunities for growth. And how can we be intentional about working together to make sure that more Africans can benefit, and as AGOA is extended, that there's more opportunity for the value chains that develop under AFCFTA to have preferred access to the United States? And how do we work to ensure that as we talk about AGOA and the benefits of growth that accrue on the continent, that we recognize how much this relationship is maturing between the United States and African partners. And so recognizing the mutual benefit that we can also hope to achieve through AGOA, but also through really broadening the partnership beyond export preferences.
Cast the net wider, if I'm hearing you correctly, but that, of course, has certainly raised fears among certain people or countries like South Africa, who have been part of this arrangement, that perhaps it's being seen to be or interpreted to mean that some would need to be dropped. So
the AGOA does have a number of provisions within it that are part of the determination of eligibility. And South Africa and the government officials that have been here this week are certainly attuned to the fact that there have been calls from the Congress to have an evaluation of how South Africa is meeting those standards in the national security space. But I would say that that's a smaller part of a larger conversation. The conversation really does put at front and center the priority that U.S. and South African companies place on strengthening the partnership between our nations. In fact, we have the privilege of being the first to host Minister Tau here on Tuesday for a discussion with the U.S. Chamber's members, as well as those of our counterparts, Business Unity South Africa, and really reaffirm how we are working and showing up to meet this moment to really strengthen the partnership. And part of how we're in this position right now is that perhaps people have forgotten we haven't done our job to really ensure that the recognition of how important the trade and investment relationship is between our two nations, the 600 U.S. companies that are active and present in South Africa, and how they rely on the collaboration there, and just how much South African trade and investment contributes to the United States. And so we've redoubled our efforts and the commitments that we've made to really showcase that. So there's a broad understanding of how there is mutual benefit in this partnership.
I mean, your personal assessment from what Minister Tau and the rest of the delegation had to say. Did you get a sense that they managed to convince whoever was in that room and may have been skeptical as to whether South Africa should continue to be a beneficiary of this arrangement? Do they equip them with whatever they may have needed to convince whoever else that South Africa continuing to be part of the arrangement is beneficial to all?
So I've been part of the private sector conversations with our member companies from across our U.S. South Africa Business Council and the broader business community from across Africa and the United States over the past few days. And we certainly have seen how South Africa, as the top beneficiary of AGOA, has contributed so much to the partnership. I believe that the minister and his delegation, which is a very broad representation of the 7th administration, the Government of National Unity, is having an array of consultations outside of those private sector deliberations. And the message that I've received in the conversations that I've had and I've been privileged to convene has really been about how do we build from this new Government of National Unity to have a reset, if you will, to really, as a colleague once described, work to find each other. And so it is my expectation and my hope that has been the spirit of the conversations, both the deliberations outside of the formal forum with government and U.S. partners to really look at how we take this opportunity with a new government with a large set of priorities, and how do we work together to build on this new moment.
And that's exactly where I want to end this conversation on, because part of the anxiety has a lot to do with the role of geopolitics in these matters, and with the USA in for a possible reset, you know, if you like, depending, of course, on the outcome of the U.S. election.
So 2024 is the year in which 4 billion people are having elections and having change of government, including 19 sets of elections this year on the African continent. And obviously I sit here in the United States where we are anticipating an election of our own in about 100 days. And so my job as a representative of American business is really work to make sure that we are consistently conveying the same message about the priority that we place on a strong and vibrant relationship between the United States and South Africa, but United States and the nations of Africa generally. And so it's my job, it's my charge to make sure that everyone is clear that we see the value and the importance of this really multifaceted, mutually beneficial relationship, and call on all parties to really put that at the center of how we engage with South Africa, but all of the nations across the continent.
Kendra, Gaither, thank you.